The problem with galactic politics is that nobody appreciates a good origin story. Mine starts with coffee, bureaucracy, and the slim possibility that humanity might accidentally save the universe or blow it up trying. Let me set the scene. It's the year 2287, and Earth has spent the last century doing what we do best, surviving against impossible odds and developing technology that makes other species simultaneously impressed and terrified. We'd gone from being the galactic equivalent of the new kid on the block to something more akin to that unpredictable neighbor. Everyone watches carefully, but nobody wants to mess with directly. My name is Marcus Reyes, Tactical Coordinator for Earth's Combined Defense Fleet, professional bureaucratic nightmare, and if you asked my mother, a disappointment who could have been a great chef, but chose to play spaceship instead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Centauri Collective had been a known quantity in galactic politics for nearly 1,000 years. They were the kind of civilization that made conquest look like an art form. Imagine a species of hyper-intelligent, mathematically perfect beings who approached warfare with the same precision a neurosurgeon might approach brain surgery. They'd conquered 63 advanced civilizations before humanity was even a blip on their stellar radar. Methodical, calculated, absolutely convinced of their own superiority. Their fundamental mistake: they'd never encountered a species quite like humans. Our deep space research station, Outpost Prometheus, hung in the void like a metallic spiderweb, a complex network of sensors and communication arrays that served as humanity's early warning system. It was the kind of technological marvel that looked like it was held together by duct tape, good intentions, and the collective willpower of its sleep-deprived maintenance crew. I was in the middle of my 5th cup of coffee, a special blend developed by our xenobiological research team that was technically classified as a controlled substance in 17 different star systems, when the first anomalous readings started trickling in. Lieutenant Johnny Rodriguez, my second-in-command and resident tech wizard, burst into the command center with the kind of energy that suggested he'd either discovered something monumentally important or had accidentally consumed too much of our weaponized caffeine blend. "Captain Reyes," he announced, his holographic tablet virtually vibrating with data, "we've got something weird." Now, in most military organizations, weird would warrant a measured response. In the Earth Defense Fleet, weird was basically our operational standard. I raised an eyebrow. "Define weird, Rodriguez. Are we talking minor bureaucratic inconvenience weird or potentially universe-ending weird?" He grimaced. "Closer to the latter. The quantum communication array lit up like a Christmas tree designed by an epileptic AI. Massive data streams began cascading across our main display, a constellation of red warning markers spreading across the star charts like some kind of digital rash. The Galactic Reconnaissance Division's transmission was a masterpiece of clinical understatement. Detected, massive fleet mobilization, Centauri Collective, projected trajectory, Sol system, recommendation, immediate defensive preparation, recommendation, as if we were discussing a minor traffic violation and not a potential extinction-level event. I did what any seasoned military professional would do. I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, mind you, but the kind of full-bodied, slightly unhinged laughter that makes subordinates wonder about their commanding officer's mental state. Johnny stared. "Sir, they have no idea what they're walking into," I managed between laughs, wiping a tear from my eye. The holographic display continued its grim calculation. 50,000 Centauri capital ships, thousands of support vessels, enough firepower to turn entire star systems into cosmic dust, and they were heading straight for Earth with the determination of a used car salesman who spotted a particularly naive customer. Our initial tactical projections were, to use a technical military term, monumentally screwed. The Centauri outnumbered us 5-1, had technology that made our best systems look like antiquated junk, and had a track record of total conquest that was about as subtle as a supernova. But here's the thing about humanity that most species fundamentally misunderstand: we don't do impossible very well. We do hold my beer and watch this extraordinarily good. "Johnny," I said, setting down my coffee and adjusting my tactical uniform, "get me a full review. And I mean full. I want to know everything. Our current fleet disposition, ammunition reserves, how many coffee machines we have that could potentially be weaponized." He blinked. "Weaponized coffee machines, sir?" I winked. "Never underestimate human innovation, Rodriguez." The Centauri Collective was about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. We don't just fight wars, we turn them into an art form, a comedy, and occasionally, a bizarre scientific experiment. And they had no idea what was coming. If there's one thing humanity excels at, it's turning potential extinction into an opportunity for spectacularly inappropriate humor. The first official communication from the Centauri Collective arrived precisely 72 hours after our initial detection. It was a masterpiece of galactic diplomacy, which is to say, it was a long-winded mathematically perfect ultimatum that basically boiled down to surrender or be obliterated. Our communications officer, Dr. Elena Volkov, a woman whose poker face could make a supercomputer look emotionally volatile, started laughing halfway through the translation. Not a polite chuckle, mind you, but the kind of laugh that suggested she was either having a mental breakdown or had discovered the universe's most elaborate joke. "They're serious," she said, wiping a tear from her eye. "They actually expect us to just roll over." The Centauri transmission was a marvel of bureaucratic precision. A perfect geometric projection filled our main view screen, mathematical lines connecting invasion vectors, precise attack formations that looked like they'd been calculated down to the nanometer. Each ship represented decades of technological advancement, computational power that could solve complex multidimensional equations, while simultaneously tracking the metabolic rates of entire planetary populations. And yet, they fundamentally misunderstood one crucial detail about humanity: we don't do predictable. Our first response came from an unexpected source. Dr. Helena Martinez, our lead xenotechnology researcher, had been monitoring the incoming data with the intensity of a cat watching a particularly interesting mousehole. She was technically brilliant, perpetually caffeinated, and possessed a sense of humor that could best be described as weaponized sarcasm. "They've calculated every possible scenario," she announced, spreading her holographic research across the command center's main display. "Except one." Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned in, which is, her grin could have powered a small electrical grid, us being completely gloriously unpredictable. The Centauri fleet was a testament to mathematical perfection, sleek obsidian vessels that looked like they'd been carved from the purest darkness, each one a monument to computational precision. Their technology was so advanced that most species would have surrendered the moment their long-range sensors detected the incoming armada. Most species, not humanity. Our response was quintessentially human. While other civilizations might have launched complex diplomatic negotiations or prepared elaborate defensive strategies, we did something entirely different. We started trolling them. The first transmission we sent back was a carefully curated collection of human internet memes, badly translated Earth pop music, and random historical video clips that made absolutely no sense. It was communication as performance art, a middle finger to galactic diplomatic protocol. "This," I told Rodriguez, "is going to be fun." The Centauri were clearly not prepared for this. Their next communication was even more formally worded, essentially asking if we were experiencing some kind of technological malfunction. We responded with a viral video of a cat playing a keyboard. But beneath the humor, serious preparations were underway. Our fleet might have looked like a ragtag collection of vessels compared to the Centauri's mathematical perfection, but each ship represented decades of adaptive technology, weapons systems that could change configuration mid-battle, and crews trained to turn improvisation into a martial art. Dr. Martinez's team had been working on something special, adaptive nanotechnology that could literally reconfigure ship structures during combat, turning defensive systems into offensive weapons in milliseconds. It was the kind of technology that made traditional warfare look like children playing with wooden blocks. "The Centauri operate on prediction," Martinez explained, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "They calculate every possible scenario with quantum computers that can process more information in a second than most species can in a decade. But prediction requires a fundamental understanding of the variable." She paused, a wicked gleam in her eye. "And we, Captain Reyes, are gloriously, beautifully unpredictable. Our fleet might have been smaller, our technology might have looked crude compared to the Centauri's sleek designs, but we had something they could never understand: the ability to turn chaos into a strategic advantage." The first wave of Centauri ships entered our solar system's outer perimeter. Mathematical precision, perfect formations, absolute confidence. They had no idea what was coming. Humanity was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. Preparation for an impossible war is a lot like planning the world's most complicated dinner party, except instead of worrying about dietary restrictions, you're calculating how to prevent an entire species from turning your planet into cosmic dust. Earth's combined defense fleet transformed overnight. What had been a relatively organized military machine became something entirely different, a hybrid of technological innovation, human ingenuity, and what can only be described as controlled chaos. Our primary research and development facility, Hidden Horizon Complex, was a marvel of human adaptability, located deep beneath the Andes Mountains, It was the kind of place that made Area 51 look like an open-air farmer's market. Here, our most brilliant minds worked around the clock, fueled by an impossible combination of caffeine, desperation, and an almost genetic inability to accept defeat. Dr. Helena Martinez wasn't just leading the technological response, she was orchestrating what could only be described as a scientific revolution. Her team had been working on adaptive nanotechnology that pushed the boundaries of what most species considered possible. Imagine a spaceship that could literally reconfigure itself mid-battle, changing from a defensive platform to an offensive weapon faster than most computers could process the command. The key, Martinez explained during one of our strategy meetings, her holographic displays dancing with complex algorithms, is understanding that technology isn't just about hardware, it's about adaptability. Lieutenant Rodriguez had been tracking the Centauri fleet's approach, and the numbers were, to use a technical term, terrifying. 50,000 capital ships, thousands of support vessels, enough firepower to turn entire star systems into cosmic dust. The mathematical precision of their approach was almost beautiful, if you ignored the whole potential extinction part. But humanity had a secret weapon. Actually, we had several, and none of them were what the Centauri expected. Our first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Akira Tanaka, our lead quantum communication specialist, discovered something peculiar about the Centauri communication protocols. They were so perfectly structured, so mathematically precise, that they became predictable, and in military strategy, predictability is the first step toward defeat. They communicate like a computer, Tanaka explained, pulling up intricate communication matrices. Perfect, precise, absolutely logical, which means they have a fundamental weakness. I leaned in. Which is? His grin was something between a scientist's excitement and a predator's anticipation. They cannot comprehend true randomness. While other civilizations might have seen the incoming Centauri fleet as a death sentence, we saw an opportunity. Our military began implementing training protocols that defied every known strategic guidebook, simulations that introduced completely random variables, combat scenarios that changed parameters mid-exercise. We were teaching our soldiers to think like jazz musicians, improvisational, adaptive, absolutely unpredictable. The global response was nothing short of miraculous. Every nation, every research facility, every technological think tank was mobilized. It wasn't just a military preparation, it was a species-wide effort that turned potential extinction into a collective challenge. Our weapon development took strange turns. The adaptive nanotechnology Martinez developed could turn a defensive shield into an offensive weapon in milliseconds. Quantum communication arrays that could send multiple simultaneous messages across different dimensional frequencies. Artificial intelligence systems that learned and adapted faster than any known computational matrix. But our most significant advantage wasn't technological, it was psychological. The Centauri had conquered 63 civilizations through mathematical precision and overwhelming force. They understood strategy, technology, computational probability. What they didn't understand was human spirit, that indefinable quality that turns seemingly impossible situations into opportunities. They think in straight lines, Martinez said during one of our final preparation meetings. We think in spirals, in unexpected curves. We turn limitations into advantages. Our fleet might have looked smaller, our technology might have seemed less refined, but we had something the Centauri could never calculate or understand. We had hope, we had creativity, we had an absolutely bizarre sense of humor, and we were ready. The first Centauri ships were about to enter our solar system's outer perimeter. Mathematical precision, perfect formations, absolute confidence. They had no idea what was coming. Space combat is nothing like the movies. It's not sleek dogfights or dramatic laser exchanges. It's a complex dance of mathematics, probability, and occasionally, completely batshit crazy human innovation. The moment the first Centauri ships breached our solar system's outer defensive perimeter, everything changed. Our long-range quantum sensors lit up like a Christmas tree having an epileptic seizure. 50,000 Centauri vessels moved with such mathematical precision that it looked more like a perfectly choreographed ballet than a military invasion. Each ship positioned at exact geometric intervals, computational trajectories calculated down to the nanometer. Incoming transmission, Lieutenant Rodriguez called out, his voice a mix of tension and something that sounded suspiciously like excitement. They're repeating their surrender ultimatum. Dr. Elena Volkov, our lead communications specialist, couldn't help herself. She burst out laughing, not a polite chuckle, but the kind of full-bodied laugh that suggested she was either having a mental breakdown or had discovered the universe's most elaborate joke. Seriously? She managed between laughs. They're still trying to negotiate. The Centauri communication was a marvel of bureaucratic precision. A holographic projection appeared, showing their fleet's perfect mathematical approach. Lines of invasion vectors, computational attack formations, that looked like they'd been drawn by a quantum-powered architect with obsessive-compulsive disorder. Our response? Absolute glorious chaos. The first wave of our defensive strategy came from an unexpected source. Dr. Helena Martinez's adaptive nanotechnology wasn't just a weapon, it was a complete reimagining of space combat. Our ships didn't just defend, they transformed. A Centauri battlecruiser would target one of our destroyers, its targeting systems locked with perfect mathematical precision, and then, something impossible would happen. The destroyer would literally reconfigure mid-attack, defensive shields becoming offensive weapons, entire ship structures shifting like some kind of technological origami. They can't predict what they can't understand, Martinez muttered, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Our communication strategy was equally bizarre. While the Centauri sent perfectly structured mathematical communications, we responded with a barrage of randomness, viral internet memes, badly translated pop songs, historical video clips that made absolutely no sense. It was psychological warfare taken to its absolute extreme. Lieutenant Rodriguez tracked the initial engagement with a mixture of professional concentration and barely contained glee. "They're confused," he reported. "Their computational models are breaking down." And that was the fundamental mistake the Centauri made. They understood strategy as a mathematical equation. We understood it as an art form. Each of our ships carried something the Centauri could never comprehend: human adaptability. Our pilots weren't just following protocols, they were improvising, turning limitations into advantages, using terrain, using unexpected maneuvers that no computational model could predict. A Centauri battle group would lock onto a potential attack vector, their quantum computers calculating the most efficient destruction path. And then our ships would do something completely unexpected. A destroyer would use a moon's gravitational field as a slingshot. Another would temporarily disable its own systems to become invisible to their targeting computers. We weren't just fighting, we were turning warfare into performance art. Dr. Akira Tanaka's quantum communication breakthrough came into play in ways nobody could have predicted. Our ships could send multiple simultaneous messages across different dimensional frequencies. To the Centauri's computational systems, it was like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces kept changing shape. "Their communication networks are collapsing," Tanaka reported, a hint of academic excitement in his voice. "They literally cannot process the level of randomness we're introducing." The first major engagement lasted less than 3 hours. By conventional military standards, it was a miracle. By human standards, it was Tuesday. 50,000 Centauri ships entered our solar system with absolute confidence, mathematical precision, perfect formations. When the initial dust settled, nearly a third of their fleet was either destroyed, disabled, or so thoroughly confused that they were essentially combat ineffective. And we were just getting started. The Centauri had made a fundamental miscalculation. They thought they were fighting a war. We were playing a game, and humanity never plays fair. Humanity has this remarkable ability to turn certain doom into an opportunity for spectacularly inappropriate triumph. The final confrontation with the Centauri Collective would become the stuff of galactic legend, a battle that would be studied, analyzed, and ultimately laughed about for centuries to come. As the initial engagement proved devastating to the Centauri fleet, their central command made a fatal mistake. They doubled down. Instead of retreating or reassessing, they committed fully to their original invasion strategy, a decision that would go down in military history as one of the most catastrophic miscalculations ever recorded. Dr. Helena Martinez command center beneath the Andes Mountains looked less like a military installation and more like a cross between a cutting-edge research facility and a caffeine-powered fever dream. Holographic displays flickered with real-time battle data, quantum communication arrays hummed with impossible complexity, and the air crackled with a mixture of tension and barely contained excitement. "They're regrouping," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. But not like we expected. The Centauri fleet was reforming into what their computational systems considered the most mathematically perfect defensive formation. Perfect geometric patterns, each ship positioned with microscopic precision, computational algorithms calculating potential human response vectors down to the quantum level. What they didn't understand was that perfect and predictable are two very different things. Our adaptive nanotechnology had moved beyond mere ship reconfiguration. Dr. Martinez's team had essentially created living technology, ships that could think, adapt, and respond faster than any traditional computational system. Each vessel was now more than a weapon, it was a sentient adaptive platform that could make split-second decisions based on environmental factors that no pre-programmed system could anticipate. Incoming primary assault vector, Rodriguez called out. They're concentrating fire on our primary defensive line. Captain Marcus Reyes, that's me, leaned forward. Rodriguez, activate improvisation protocol Omega. If the Centauri communication networks could experience confusion, this would be that moment. Our ships didn't just defend, they transformed. A destroyer would become a defensive platform, then milliseconds later, reconfigure into an offensive weapon. Entire fleet formations would shift and change like some kind of technological liquid, defying every known law of space combat. Dr. Akira Tanaka's quantum communication breakthrough turned our entire fleet into a living, breathing network of impossible complexity. We weren't just sending messages, we were creating computational noise that was essentially technological warfare. Their targeting systems are collapsing, Tanaka reported, a mix of academic excitement and pure unadulterated glee in his voice. They literally cannot process the level of randomness we're generating. The Centauri had conquered 63 civilizations through mathematical precision and overwhelming force. They understood strategy as a perfect equation. We understood it as an art form. Each of our ships carried something the Centauri could never comprehend: human creativity. Our pilots weren't following protocols, they were improvising, using lunar gravitational fields as slingshots, temporarily disabling systems to become invisible, turning limitations into advantages with a speed and creativity that defied computational prediction. A Centauri battle group would lock onto an attack vector, their quantum computers calculating the most efficient destruction path. And then our ships would do something completely unexpected. A destroyer would use an asteroid field as cover. Another would create a localized quantum disruption field that essentially turned their own targeting systems into meaningless noise. We weren't just fighting a war, we were turning warfare into a form of performance art. Global communication networks showed something remarkable. Every human on Earth was watching, not with fear, but with a mixture of excitement, pride, and that uniquely human blend of sardonic humor. Social media exploded with memes about the invasion. Live streams tracked the battle with commentary that was part military analysis, part comedy routine. News networks struggled to maintain professional composure as humanity's most unexpected defense unfolded in real time. The final turning point came unexpectedly. The Centauri fleet, still committed to their original invasion strategy, concentrated their primary assault on what they calculated was our weakest defensive point. They had no idea we had been waiting for exactly this moment. Dr. Martinez's adaptive nanotechnology reached its ultimate expression. Our entire defensive line didn't just respond, it transformed. Ships became living weapons. Defensive platforms turned into offensive nightmares that defied every known law of space combat. When the computational dust settled, nearly 2/3 of the Centauri fleet was either destroyed, disabled, or so thoroughly confused that they were essentially combat ineffective. They came expecting a simple conquest. They found a species that turned warfare into an improvisational art form. The Centauri had made a fundamental miscalculation. They thought they were fighting a war, we were playing a game, and humanity never ever plays fair. Aftermath is always more complicated than the battle itself, especially when you've just turned an entire galactic invasion into what was essentially the universe's most elaborate practical joke. The first official galactic communication came 3 weeks after the Centauri fleet's spectacular defeat. It wasn't a diplomatic message, it wasn't a surrender, it was essentially the extraterrestrial equivalent of a confused text message. What just happened? Dr. Elena Volkov, our lead communications specialist, laughed so hard she nearly fell out of her chair. The entire Combined Defense Fleet Command Center erupted into a mixture of professional military composure and barely contained hysterical laughter. Lieutenant Rodriguez pulled up the communication logs, a holographic display showing the complete breakdown of Centauri computational systems. It wasn't just a military victory, it was a comprehensive deconstruction of everything they understood about warfare, strategy, and intelligent species. "They're requesting a diplomatic explanation," he asked, looking equal parts confused and amused. Captain Marcus Reyes, that's me, leaned back in his chair. "Tell them we'll get back to them, eventually." The global response was nothing short of miraculous. While other civilizations might have treated such a massive conflict with somber reflection, humanity did what we do best. We turned it into a cultural phenomenon. Memes proliferated faster than the Centauri invasion fleet. T-shirts appeared with slogans like "Earth, where warfare meets performance art," and "Sorry, alien invasion machine broke." Social media exploded with comedic breakdowns of the battle, with millions of amateur strategists explaining how humanity had essentially trolled an entire advanced civilization into complete computational collapse. Dr. Helena Martinez became an overnight global celebrity. Her adaptive nanotechnology was hailed as the most significant technological breakthrough in human history. Research facilities around the world were suddenly inundated with funding, with every nation and corporation wanting to understand how we had transformed warfare into a form of creative expression. But the real victory wasn't technological, it was psychological. The Centauri had conquered 63 civilizations through mathematical precision and overwhelming force. They understood strategy as a perfect equation. We had shown them that strategy was an art form, unpredictable, fluid, fundamentally human. Diplomatic communications continued to arrive, not just from the Centauri, but from dozens of other galactic civilizations who had been watching the conflict with a mixture of terror and fascination. "How?" one transmission asked, "did you turn an invasion into this?" The answer was simple: humanity doesn't just adapt, we remix, we transform, we take limitations and turn them into opportunities. Dr. Akira Tanaka's quantum communication breakthrough became the foundation of an entirely new field of extraterrestrial communication. Universities around the world began developing courses in adaptive xenostrategic improvisation, essentially teaching how to turn potential destruction into an art form. The Centauri fleet that entered our solar system with mathematical precision, 50,000 ships of absolute computational perfection, was reduced to a cautionary tale, a case study in what happens when you mistake predictability for strength. Our first official diplomatic communication to the Centauri Collective was surprisingly brief. Lesson learned: don't start what you can't finish. Sincerely, Earth. Attached was a compilation of the most ridiculous internet memes from the conflict, because of course we did. The galactic community would spend decades, perhaps centuries, trying to understand what had happened. How a species could turn a potential extinction event into a demonstration of creative resilience. But humans, we just called it Tuesday. As for the Centauri, they would spend the next several generations trying to develop computational models that could predict human behavior. Spoiler alert. They would fail, spectacularly. Because that's the thing about humanity that most species never understand. We don't just survive, we turn survival into a form of art, comedy, and pure unadulterated chaos. And we are just getting started.